don't even know where to start. I feel like it's a mixed bag, and I hesitate to like equate it to one thing. I think there were a lot of factors that were all kind of around, all mixed in, layered in for why I stopped doing parkour. I mean, around the time I started doing a lot of more like computer work kind of stuff, and we were working on like the Merm documentary. I'm trying to like kind of pace ourselves up to like what happened exactly, but we had the Merm documentary. I was working on the Inner Mastery course thing. I brought people out for that seminar. Right around that same time, there was the Apex International. I think it was a combination of like realizing, first of all, I think my addiction absolutely was the main factor. Like I think I would have kept doing parkour if it wasn't for like falling into that abyss, you know. I really do. I don't know how much longer. I do feel like there was a part of me that was distancing, like starting to feel kind of like disconnected from it. I felt you know, after winning like the Apex International, I was kind of like, is this the epitome? is paying my rent for 1 month the like international champs golden ticket, dude? I was like, is this like where it's headed, right? And I look back on that side of it, just that part, right? Like when I look at the competitions and I see where parkour has gone in that direction, it's like I don't even think, if anything, people make less money now.
I mean, yeah.
I don't know. It might be like the same. It might have just capped out. I feel
still
like
a
the Apex
struggle.
International
It's still
paid the most that I ever got for a speed competition.
What was that prize money? It was like $3,000 maybe?
It might have been 3 or
2,500. 5? Was it 5? I mean, it was big. It was
the biggest at the time.
That
and
was
I think
the peak.
it went.
That
I
was a
think it was
crazy
the
moment.
peak because it was like, and then I don't know what happened. There was just other factors that played in. I just don't think that style of competition really. I don't know. In sport parkour, still trying to do it. I still think it's cool. It's just, I don't know. It hasn't really taken off. You know, like I think that was part of it. There was a part of it that was just like, I don't see this being my future. And then at the same time, I was trying to figure out other business strategies within parkour to make money. I think, honestly, like to this day, I think Parkour Dojo could have been a really successful thing. If I cared enough, it could still be a successful thing. Who knows? Maybe I'll go back to it. I was looking at it recently, and I was looking at this thing. I've been into jujitsu, so I've been doing a lot of jujitsu, and I like immediately I started following people on Instagram, and like I start getting these ads from BJJ Fanatics, and it's on YouTube as well. But like there's like instructionals on BJJ Fanatics, and basically I think of Parkour Dojo as the BJJ Fanatics of parkour. That's what I was going to do with it. I was going to have people put their own instructionals on Parkour Dojo, and then I would pay, like they pay out like 50 for any instructional you put up, and you can do whatever you want, right? Like Gordon Ryan recently, he won like the WNO, and he had like and this is how a lot of people make money in jiu-jitsu, is they'll do an instructional based off of something they did in competition. So they did like, he won with an arm bar, he put it in like a box, right? And it was like some like Halloween themed thing. It's kind of dumb, kind of cool, but he like put like a baby arm and like it separated it from a baby, and it was like, and he had them open it after the match, and he planned, basically he showed that he had planned he was going to do an arm bar, and so then he immediately had the arm bar lined up as like his instructional on BJJ Fanatics, and so it was like
some jiu-jitsu right
there. Yeah,
and
it's, you know, it's pretty, you know, high level move to just, you know, like have that kind of confidence and to call it out, and like,
to call it out against another, you know, international.
And, you know, he wasn't like the greatest competitor, but like it's still like he's done that before. Even he'll actually even call it out like before the match. I'm gonna hit this on you. It's just pretty crazy, but it's, you know, and it's a little different, I think, in that regard. But you know, when you look at it, like I think he just recently posted an Instagram thing where it was like he showed like his sales on BJJ Fanatics, and it's like $7 million or something from his like instructionals. And I don't know if it would ever be like that, but if you think about it, like, you know, maybe, you know, someone like, you know, I don't know who's a good fucking guy now these days. You know who I think of recently that I really like watching is Joe Scandrett. And
Joe Scandrett has taken the descent game and just ran with it.
That was maybe one caveat where I'm like, hey, wait, actually that guy has done some really cool, efficient descents.
He's
and, like,
really
put some new flavor on it. Like those, although I will say, man, I'm just like, I don't know how they design those poles, but I always look at that. I'm like, that looks so sketchy. Do you think they would break off, or like?
It just depends.
You put
I think
that much weight on the end of a
you carry
lever,
a little bit more
but
girth around you than I do, and like, so I think like for me, the pole stuff, like there's been a few. I did a pole slide the other day because I did a pole slide even a while ago on like one of those big traffic, Arapahoe down by the pavilions, Denver Performing Arts Center. But like some of the street lights, they can take our weight, especially if you just kind of like sliding down vertically. If you like jumping at it with a lot of lateral momentum.
Well, those are the ones where I'm like, where you jump from like the top, and I see him
Joe's
just like
also
wobble.
He's more like my size, I would say, or my weight probably. He's not very giant. I mean, he's thick though. He's probably actually outweighs me, but he's not a huge person.
Yeah.
I think it plays into it because those things have a little bit more tolerance for lateral momentum from
But yeah, anyways, I don't know. I think like it's possible that if you had like the right marketing and you helped people produce their own instructionals and you helped them kind of come up with like catchy shit for their instructional, and you just took 50-50 like they do on BJJ Fanatics, it probably wouldn't pan out as big as like jiu-jitsu, but it could be pretty lucrative. That was kind of my vision for that, and it just,
Yeah. I mean, it's very, there's a maturation phase too. Like you have to catch parkour when that is curling, that wave is curling. And that wave I don't necessarily think has curled yet, if it's going to curl. Meaning like jiu-jitsu is probably a few decades in front of parkour in terms of maturation, just because of, it coming out earlier. I mean, I don't actually know the history of jiu-jitsu. Maybe you can enlighten us if you know anything about it. It feels like it's older, and it's, I mean, certainly it's a martial art. Like it's got to go probably even, just got deep roots somewhere. But then with the UFC becoming what it is, and with Joe Rogan being this black belt, and like, there's so much like around jiu-jitsu that it makes sense to me why there's a huge level of commerce happening in that space. Whereas parkour, it could get there. I could see it. I do think it probably is growing, even if it's kind of like subtle and under the surface, but it still might be another few generations before it becomes a thing where you can actually, I do wonder if there's a business like that.
I think it plays into like not having a very good competition format that's consistent. Like I think with jiu-jitsu, you have this really, it's a pretty simplistic game, right?
Yeah.
Where you have two people on a mat, you got a ref, you got, and it's like, you can do these things, you can't do these things. And
it's compelling because the threat of death is ultimately what is selling. Is like, had that person not tapped, or maybe that sometimes this actually happens, people's arms would snap or do snap. People get choked unconscious. There's like a primal thing happening there that appeals in a way that, like, because Chase Tag tried to sort of capture some of the same excitement, I think, in having sort of a standardized arena and then a more human on human type of dynamic. But tag is just not as compelling as fighting.
Yeah.
It just, touching somebody doesn't really mean as much as choking them unconscious. And we all know that. And so that's why it's going to be harder sell to like the masses, because you can touch me. That doesn't mean I'm not getting away still, especially in parkour. It's like, you could touch my shoe, but I'm still on the wall, like, and I'm over it. So bye.
Yeah.
So it's just like, it doesn't quite map onto like what's powerful about parkour is not showcased in that, in like you're saying, it's not. And where SPL does a great job is they try to showcase what's powerful and cool about parkour, but then it becomes so niche that people are like, whatever, dude. I don't get it. Like, it's hard to get it if you don't train or if you don't practice.
Yeah.
And jiu-jitsu, but jiu-jitsu had the same problem. That's what gives me hope, is because jiu-jitsu had the same problem. People were like, used to always talk shit when people were on the ground in UFC because well, just get up, and like, why doesn't he just like punch him, or just the stupid shit people will say.
Yeah.
And now there's like a higher education, just baseline, it seems like, from the average UFC fan. They know certain positions, they know what's dangerous, and what certain chokes and submission things look like. And so it becomes a lot more interesting. And I don't know, it might just be that it takes time.
Yeah. Yeah, it could be. I wonder if there is a format that could kind of pan out. I don't know. I like that people are trying new things. Like, I like the world chase tag thing. Well, it's a cool, like, try different formats, see what works.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's unlikely that, I don't know. Because the problem is, it would be cool if you did some, like, I like also the store thing that they've been kind of doing. They'll do like these competitions at spots.
Yeah.
I think that's a really cool development. I think that could be pretty interesting if you found some really dope spots to do some competitions at. Even speed competitions at that spot. That was one thing that was kind of a little unfair about like working at Apex. Being like, I love that that's how I went out, right? Like, I spent like a year working at Apex Boulder, and then we have the international competition. People are flying internationally to come here, jet lagged, and I'm just like,
and we introduced like the one thing that no one trains, which is like a fucking nub stride at height, like. Which actually, to Mishin and Pedro's credit, they both like did that without too much hesitation.
Right. Yeah.
But still, that was intense, dude. That was.
No, it's funny. I mean, I did win pretty decisively. I won all 3 rounds. Yeah. But it was still like, it would probably be more fair. Like, if I defended my title, if I went to like Europe.
Yeah.
And
fair.
they're like,
True.
Pedro Salgado or whatever, some of those guys. I'm jet lagged. I go over there, train at their gym. Might be a little bit different story, but
probably.
But I like the fact that I went out. I won the first international speed competition, or like first. I think it was the first legitimate one where it was some people, like the most legit athletes. And then I just like dropped off. Now I get to say I was world champ when I left off.
So, world champion in the building.
Boost my ego a little bit.
Yeah, pump it up a little bit.
But you know what? That I don't really care that much about that. I feel like my greatest accomplishment in parkour was the drops between levels. And I should have called it the Baker drop to boost my ego.
That would have been.
If you're out there listening and you want to give me a little ego boost, if you ever see someone do that move,
say, wow,
just be like,
Baker
"Oh,
drop.
nice Baker drop."
Oh my god!
Just to give it a little hashtag.
I'm gonna have to just say,
because I was also thinking about it the other day, and I was like, you know what? Like, not only it'd be one thing if there was a good name for it, Like I heard some other people throw out some names like, oh, what about like Zero Spin Cat or something, like some stupid things, but there really was not a good name for that described what it was. Like, I didn't feel like.
Yeah.
And so I should have just named it the Baker drop and then permanently had that on the history of parkour. But now it's probably too far gone. But I don't know, maybe we can bring it back. Maybe I'll just to boost my own ego, I'll start commenting on people's things like, "Hey, nice Baker drop."
It's gonna look like I'm gonna have to say that's probably not a good idea. I'm gonna say you should avoid doing that.
I just think it's funny.